Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a marketing classic that revolutionized the way we think about branding and advertising, positioning. The Battle for Your Mind by Ries and Jack Trout. If you're in marketing, branding, or just curious about how to make your product or service stand out in a crowded market, this book is for you. Ries and Trout introduce the concept of positioning, which is all about how you differentiate your brand in the minds of your customers. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or just starting out, positioning offers practical, actionable advice that's as relevant today as it was when the book was first published in 1981. So, grab a notebook, sit back, and let's explore the key ideas, lessons, and takeaways from this groundbreaking book. Overview of the book. Positioning. The Battle for Your Mind is based on the idea that in today's overcrowded marketplace, the key to success is not just having a great product or service, but also positioning it in a way that makes it stand out in the minds of consumers. Ries and Trout argue that positioning is about creating a unique, memorable impression that differentiates your brand from the competition. The book is divided into several sections, each focusing on a different aspect of positioning. 1. What positioning is. Ries and Trout define positioning and explain why it's essential in today's market. 2. How to position a product. They provide a step-by-step guide to creating a successful positioning strategy. 3. Positioning in different contexts. They explore how positioning applies to products, services, companies, and even individuals. 4. Common positioning mistakes. They discuss the pitfalls to avoid when developing a positioning strategy. 5. The future of positioning. They offer insights into how positioning will evolve in the future. Through a combination of case studies, real-world examples, and practical advice, Ries and Trout provide a comprehensive guide to understanding and applying the principles of positioning. Key themes and lessons. Let's break down the core lessons and themes from positioning. These are the ideas that have made this book a must-read for anyone in marketing and branding. 1. What positioning is. Ries and Trout define positioning as the process of creating a unique, memorable impression in the minds of consumers. They argue that in today's overcrowded marketplace, the key to success is not just having a great product or service, but also positioning it in a way that makes it stand out. A. The overcrowded marketplace. Ries and Trout explain that the marketplace is overcrowded with products, services, and messages, making it difficult for any single brand to stand out. Example, they compare the marketplace to a crowded room where everyone is shouting to be heard. The key to being heard is not shouting louder, but saying something different. Case study. Ries and Trout share how Avis positioned itself as the "We Try Harder" car rental company, differentiating itself from the market leader, Hertz. The takeaway, in an overcrowded marketplace, differentiation is key. You need to find a way to stand out from the competition. B. The battle for the mind. Ries and Trout argue that positioning is about winning the battle for the consumer's mind. They explain that consumers have limited mental space, and the goal is to occupy a unique position in their minds. Example, they use the analogy of a ladder in the consumer's mind, where each rung represents a different brand. The goal is to be on the top rung of the ladder in your category. Case study, Ries and Trout share how 7-Up positioned itself as the Uncola, differentiating itself from the cola brands and occupying a unique position in the consumer's mind. The lesson, positioning is about creating a unique, memorable impression in the consumer's mind. The goal is to occupy a unique position in your category. 2. How to position a product. Ries and Trout provide a step-by-step guide to creating a successful positioning strategy. They emphasize the importance of research, differentiation, and consistency. A. Research the market. Ries and Trout argue that the first step in positioning is understanding the market. You need to know who your competitors are, what they're offering, and how consumers perceive them. Example, they share how they researched the car rental market and discovered that Hertz was perceived as the market leader, while Avis was seen as a distant second. Case study. Ries and Trout used this research to position Avis as the "We Try Harder" car rental company, emphasizing its commitment to customer service. The takeaway, research the market thoroughly. Understand your competitors and how consumers perceive them. B. Differentiate your product. Ries and Trout emphasize that differentiation is the key to successful positioning. You need to find a unique angle that sets your product apart from the competition. Example, they share how Volvo differentiated itself by positioning its cars as the safest on the market. Case study, Ries and Trout used this differentiation to create a successful positioning strategy for Volvo, emphasizing safety in all its advertising. The lesson: find a unique angle that sets your product apart. Differentiation is key to successful positioning. C. Be consistent. Ries and Trout argue that consistency is essential for successful positioning. You need to consistently communicate your positioning message across all channels. Example, they share how McDonald's consistently communicates its positioning as a fast, affordable, and family-friendly restaurant. Case study, Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of consistency in McDonald's advertising, from its slogans to its menu offerings. The takeaway: be consistent in your positioning. Consistently communicate your message across all channels. 3. Positioning in different contexts. Ries and Trout explore how positioning applies to products, services, companies, and even individuals. They argue that the principles of positioning are universal and can be applied in a variety of contexts. A. Positioning a product. Ries and Trout explain that positioning a product involves finding a unique angle that sets it apart from the competition. Example, they share how Tide positioned itself as the cleanest laundry detergent, emphasizing its superior cleaning power. Case study, Ries and Trout used this positioning to create a successful advertising campaign for Tide, emphasizing its cleaning power in all its messaging. The lesson: find a unique angle that sets your product apart. Emphasize this angle in all your messaging. B. Positioning a service. Ries and Trout argue that positioning a service involves emphasizing the unique benefits it offers. Example, they share how FedEx positioned itself as the overnight delivery service, emphasizing its speed and reliability. Case study, Ries and Trout used this positioning to create a successful advertising campaign for FedEx, emphasizing its speed and reliability in all its messaging. The takeaway: emphasize the unique benefits of your service. Use this as the basis for your positioning. C. Positioning a company. Ries and Trout explain that positioning a company involves creating a unique, memorable impression in the minds of consumers. Example, they share how IBM positioned itself as the leader in computer technology, emphasizing its expertise and innovation. Case study, Ries and Trout used this positioning to create a successful advertising campaign for IBM, emphasizing its leadership in computer technology. The lesson: create a unique, memorable impression for your company. Use this as the basis for your positioning. D. Positioning an individual. Ries and Trout argue that positioning also applies to individuals, such as politicians, celebrities, and business leaders. Example, they share how Richard Nixon positioned himself as the law and order candidate during his presidential campaign, emphasizing his commitment to safety and security. Case study, Ries and Trout used this positioning to create a successful campaign for Nixon, emphasizing his commitment to law and order in all his messaging. The takeaway: positioning applies to individuals as well as products and companies. Find a unique angle that sets you apart. 4. Common positioning mistakes. Ries and Trout discuss the pitfalls to avoid when developing a positioning strategy. They emphasize the importance of clarity, consistency, and differentiation. A. Lack of clarity. Ries and Trout argue that a lack of clarity is one of the most common positioning mistakes. They explain that if your positioning message is unclear, consumers won't understand what makes your product unique. Example, they share how some companies try to be everything to everyone, resulting in a muddled positioning message. Case study, Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of clarity in positioning, using examples of companies that failed because their messaging was unclear. The lesson: be clear in your positioning. Make sure consumers understand what makes your product unique. B. Inconsistency. Ries and Trout argue that inconsistency is another common positioning mistake. They explain that if your positioning message changes frequently, consumers will be confused. Example, they share how some companies change their positioning message with each new campaign, resulting in a lack of consistency. Case study, Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of consistency in positioning, using examples of companies that failed because their messaging was inconsistent. The takeaway: be consistent in your positioning. Consistently communicate your message across all channels. C. Lack of differentiation. Ries and Trout argue that a lack of differentiation is one of the most common positioning mistakes. They explain that if your product is not differentiated from the competition, consumers won't see a reason to choose it. Example: they share how some companies try to compete on price alone, resulting in a lack of differentiation. Case study: Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of differentiation in positioning, using examples of companies that failed because their products were not differentiated. The lesson: differentiate your product. Find a unique angle that sets it apart from the competition. 5. The future of positioning. Ries and Trout offer insights into how positioning will evolve in the future. They argue that as the marketplace becomes even more crowded, the principles of positioning will become even more important. A. The rise of digital marketing. Ries and Trout predict that digital marketing will play an increasingly important role in positioning. They explain that as consumers spend more time online, companies will need to adapt their positioning strategies to the digital landscape. Example: they share how companies like Amazon have successfully positioned themselves in the digital marketplace, emphasizing convenience and selection. Case study: Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of adapting positioning strategies to the digital landscape, using examples of companies that have successfully done so. The takeaway: adapt your positioning strategy to the digital landscape. As consumers spend more time online, digital marketing will become increasingly important. B. The importance of personalization. Ries and Trout argue that personalization will play an increasingly important role in positioning. They explain that as consumers demand more personalized experiences, companies will need to tailor their positioning strategies to individual preferences. Example: they share how companies like Netflix have successfully positioned themselves by offering personalized recommendations based on individual viewing habits. Case study: Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of personalization in positioning, using examples of companies that have successfully tailored their strategies to individual preferences. The lesson: personalize your positioning strategy. As consumers demand more personalized experiences, tailoring your strategy to individual preferences will become increasingly important. C. The challenge of ad clutter. Ries and Trout warn that ad clutter will continue to be a challenge in the future. They explain that as the marketplace becomes even more crowded, companies will need to find new ways to cut through the noise and capture consumers' attention. Example: they share how companies like Apple have successfully cut through the ad clutter by creating memorable, impactful campaigns. Case study: Ries and Trout emphasize the importance of creativity and differentiation in cutting through ad clutter, using examples of companies that have successfully done so. The takeaway: find new ways to cut through the ad clutter. As the marketplace becomes even more crowded, creativity and differentiation will be key to capturing consumers' attention. Actionable takeaways. Now that we've covered the key lessons, let's talk about how you can apply these principles in your own marketing efforts. Here are some actionable steps inspired by positioning. 1. Research the market. Understand your competitors and how consumers perceive them. 2. Differentiate your product. Find a unique angle that sets your product apart from the competition. 3. Be consistent. Consistently communicate your positioning message across all channels. 4. Be clear. Make sure your positioning message is clear and easy to understand. 5. Avoid common mistakes. Avoid lack of clarity, inconsistency, and lack of differentiation. 6. Adapt to the digital landscape. Adapt your positioning strategy to the digital marketplace. 7. Personalize your strategy. Tailor your positioning strategy to individual preferences. 8. Cut through the clutter. Find new ways to cut through the ad clutter and capture consumers' attention. Criticisms and controversies. While positioning has been widely praised, some critics argue that the book's focus on traditional marketing methods may not fully apply to the digital age. Additionally, some readers may find the book's emphasis on differentiation and consistency less relevant in today's fast-paced, ever-changing market. However, the book's core principles, Understanding the market, differentiating your product, and consistently communicating your message remain highly relevant and applicable across industries and contexts. Conclusion. Positioning. The Battle for Your Mind is a must-read for anyone in marketing and branding. Ries and Jack Trout's timeless principles and practical advice provide a roadmap for creating a unique, memorable impression in the minds of consumers. Whether you're a seasoned marketer or just starting out, this book offers valuable insights and strategies to help you succeed in the ever-changing world of marketing. If you found this summary helpful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more book summaries and marketing insights. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway from positioning is, or if there's another book you'd like me to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.